Okay, this is book 2. I think it's the third recording session, and we're starting on Menelaus's contingent from Sparta, Lacedaemon, but we're going to come in from earlier here. To Agamemnon every town her native birth commends, in double 50 sable barks. With him a world of men, most strong, most strong and full of valor went. And he in triumph then put on his most resplendent arms, since he did overshine the whole heroic host of Greece in power of that design. In power of that design. Who did in Lacedaemon's rule the unmeasured concave hold, high Pharis, Sparta, Messe's towers, for doves so much extolled, Brycia's and Augea's grounds, strong La, Aetion, Amyclus, Hellas, harbor, strong La, Aetylin, Amyclus, Hellas, harbor town, Amyclus, Hellas, harbor town, that Neptune beats upon. All these did Menelaus lead, his brother, that in cries of war was famous. 60 ships conveyed these enemies to Troy in chief, because their king was chiefly injured there. 60 ships conveyed these enemies to Troy in chief, because their king was chiefly injured there in Helen's rape, and did his best to make them buy it dear. 60 ships conveyed these enemies to Troy in chief, because their king was chiefly injured there in Helen's rape, and did his best to make them buy it dear. So I prepped beforehand this time, each contingent, phonetic pronunciation things for each contingent, just because there's, it was too much to do it, on the spot. It was a waste of time. And did his best to make them buy it dear. Who dwelt in Pylos' sandy store, to make them buy it dear. Who dwelt in Pylos' sandy soil, and Arene the fair, in Thryon near Alpheus flood, and Epe full of air, in Kyparissus Amphigen, full of air, in Kyparissus Amphigen, and little Telion, the town where all the Iliads dwelt, and famous Dorion, where the Muses opposite in strife of poesy to ancient Thamyris of Thrace did use him cruelly. He coming from Eurytus' court, the wise Icalian king, because he proudly dost affirm he could more sweetly sing than that Pierian race. The wise Icalian king, because he proudly durst affirm he could more sweetly sing than that Pierian race of Jove, who, angry with his vaunt, bereft his eyesight and his song, and did that ear enchant. Bereft his eyesight and his song, and did the ear enchant, and of his skill to touch his harp disfurnished his hand. All these in 90 hollow keels disfurnished his hand. All these in 90 hollow keels grave Nestor did command. Disfurnished his hand. All these in 90 hollow keels grave Nestor did command. 1, 2, 3. All right, good. Sometimes I'm sitting kind of hunched because I have the computer. As you can see, it's like bouncing around the camera because the computer's on a one of those stand things, and I'm using the trackpad sometimes, which is why my arm is like that. "90 hollow keels grave Nestor did command. The richly blessed inhabitants of the Arcadian land, below Selene's mount, that by Epitus' tomb did stand, where dwelt the bold near-fighting men who in Phaeneus live, and Orchomen, where flocks of sheep the shepherds clustering driv, in the shepherds clustering driv, in Rhipae and in Stratia, Stratiae, clustering driv, in Rhipae and in Stratiae, the fair Mantinian town, in Rhipae and in Stratiae, the fair Mantinian town, and strong in Nisipe, clustering driv, in Rhipae and in Stratiae, the fair Mantinian town, and strong in Nispe, that for height is ever weather blown, and strong in Nispe, that for height is ever weather blown, Tegea and in Stymphalus, Parasia strongly walled, all these Alcaeus' son to field, King Agapenor called. In 60 barks he brought them on, and every bark well manned with fierce Arcadians, skilled to use the utmost of a band. King Agamemnon on these men did well-built ships bestow, to pass the gulfy purple sea that knows. King Agamemnon on these men did well-built ships bestow, to pass the gulfy purple sea that no sea rights did know. Ah, right, because Agamemnon's giving them the ships that they don't have any ships. With fierce Arcadians, skilled to use the utmost of a band. King Agamemnon on these men did well-built ships of a band. King Agamemnon on these ships did well-built ships of a band. King Agamemnon on these men did well-built ships bestow, to pass the gulfy purple sea that no sea rights did know. To pass the gulfy purple sea that no sea rights did know. It's definitely faster than it was. One, two, three. That no sea rights did know. That no sea rights did know. They who in Hermon, Bouphrasis, Elis did remain, what Olen's cliffs. They who in Hermon, Bouphrasis, and in Elis did remain, what Olen's cliffs, Alysius, and Merson did contain, were led to war by twice 2 dukes, and each 10 ships did bring, which many venturous Epeans did serve for burthening, beneath Amphimachus' charge, and valiant Thalpius, son of Eurytus, actor one, the other Cteacus, 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 son of Eu son of Eurytus actor one, son of Eurytus actor one, the other Cteacus. Actor one, the other Cteatus. Diaries Hold on, I'm going to make this bigger. The other Cteatus. Diores Amarincides, the other did employ. Diores Amarincides, the other did employ. The fourth, divine Polyxenus, Agasthenes' joy. Divine Polyxenus, Agasthenes' joy. The fourth, divine Polyxenus, Agasthenes' joy. The king of fair Aganides, from who Lycisus. Okay. Angaiades. Agasthenes' joy. The king of fair Angaiades, from the king of fair Angaiades, who from Dulichius came, and from Echinacus' sweet isles, which hold. Who from Dulichius came, and from Echinacus' sweet isles, and from Echinacus' sweet isles, which hold their holy frame. Echinacus. Who from Dulichius came. Who from Dulichius came, and from Echinacus' sweet isles, which hold their holy frame by ample Elis region, which hold their holy frame by ample Elis region. By ample Elis region, Meges Phylides led, whom Duke Phyleus Juve's Meges Phylides led, whom Duke Phyleus Jove's beloved begat, and whilom fled to large Dulichius, whilom fled to large Dulichius, for the wrath that fired his father's breast. Twice 20 ships with ebon sails were in his charge addressed. The warlike men of Cephaly and those of Ithaca, woody Neritus and the men of wet Crocilia, sharp Egypt. Egilipa. I didn't write anything for. And wet Crocilia, sharp Egilipa, Samos Isle, Zacynthus sea enclosed, sharp Egilipa, Samos Isle, Zacynthus sea enclosed, Epirus, and the men that hold the continent opposed, all these did wide Ulysses lead, in council peer to Jove. 12 ships he brought, which in their course vermilion sterns did move. The continent opposed, all these did wise Ulysses lead, in council peer to Jove. 12 ships he brought, which in their course vermilion sterns did move. Okay. which in their course vermilion sterns did move. Thoas, Andramon's well-spoke son, did guide the Aetolians well, those that in Pluron, Olenon, and strong Pylene dwell. Great Callis, that by seaside stands, and stony Caledon, for no more of Aeneas' sons survived, they all, and stony Caledon, for now no more of Aeneas' sons. Stony Caledon, for now no more of Aeneas' sons survived, they all were gone. No more of his royal self did live, no more his... They all were gone. No more his royal self did live, no more his noble son, the golden Meleager now, their glasses all were run. All things were left to him in charge, the Aetolians' chief he was. Glasses all were run. All things were left to him in charge, the Aetolians' chief he was, and 40 ships, the Aetolians' chief he was, and the Aetolians' chief he was, and 40 ships to Trojan wars the seas with him did pass. To Trojan wars the seas with him did pass. The royal soldier Idamen did lead the Cretans stout, the men of Gnossus and the town Gortyna walled about, of Lyctus and Miletus towers, of white Lycassus state, of Phaestus and of Rhytius, the cities fortunate, and all the rest inhabiting the 100 towns of Crete, whom warlike Idamen did lead, co-partner in the fleet with Kilman Merion, with whom warlike Idamen did lead, co-partner in the fleet with Kilman Merion. 80 ships with them did Troy invade. Merion, 80 ships with them did Troy invade. Yeah, it's definitely better that this time I just prepped the entire phonetic sheet. So again, basically what I did was I copied the text of what I'm reading, and every time there's a proper noun that I was unsure of how to pronounce it, I had already built my pronunciation guide, and I would insert, instead of the actual written name of the place that we're talking about, I would write the phonetic version of that pronunciation so that I can just read it, sight read it pretty much. So like instead of LynDus, I wrote capital L, capital E, capital N, dash, lowercase d, lowercase u, lowercase s, which then I can just read quickly and know that that's how it's pronounced. Because I already checked. I already went through every single name and did those pronunciations. I always do that for books. But I think I would really only do this mostly for book 2 or some of the battles where names are kind of like rattled off really fast. I don't do this for every single line of text in a book that I'm narrating. With Kilman Merion, 80 ships with them did Troy invade. Tlepolemus Heraclides, right strong and bigly made, brought 9 tall ships bigly made. 80 ships with them did Troy invade. Tlepolemus Heraclides, right strong and bigly made, brought 9 tall ships from war. Bigly made, brought 9 tall ships of war from Rhodes, which haughty Rhodians manned, who dwelt in 3 dissevered parts of that most pleasant land, which Lindus and Gelissus were, and bright Camyrus called. Tlepolemus commanded these in battle unappalled, whom fair Astyoche brought forth by force of Hercules, let out of Ephur with his hand from river Sellies. Ephur with his hand from river Selise. When many towns of princely youths he leveled Selise. When many towns of princely youths he leveled with the ground. Selise. When many towns of princely youths he leveled with the ground. Tlepolim in his father's house, for building much renowned, brought up to headstrong state of youth, his mother's brothers slew. The flower of arms Lysimnius, that somewhat aged grew. Then straight he gathered him a fleet, assembling bands of men, and fled by sea to shun the threats that were denounced then by other sons and nephews of the Alcidian. By other sons and nephews of the Alcidian fortitude. By other sons and nephews of the Alcidian denounced then, by other sons and nephews of the Alcidian fortitude, he came in his exile to Rhodes, driven in with tempests rude. The Rhodians were distinct in tribes, and great with Jove did stand, the king of men and great with Jove did stand, the king of men and gods, who gave much treasure to their land. Who gave much treasure to their land. Nireus out of Simois, their land. Nireus out of Simois haven. Nireus out of Simois haven 3 well-built barks did bring. Nireus fair Aglaea's son, and Charipes the king. Nireus was the fairest man that to fair Ilion came, of all the Greeks, save Peleus' son, who passed for general frame. But weak this was, not fit for war, and therefore few did guide. That to fair Ilion came, of all the Greeks, save Peleus' son, who passed for general frame. But weak this was, not fit for war, and therefore few did guide. Who in Cassus, Nicerus, and Crapathus who did in Cassus, Nicerus, and Crapathus abide, in Eurypylus town, and in Calydnus soils. Pheidippus and bold Antiphus did guide to Trojan toils. In Eurypylus town, and in Calydnus soils. In Eurypylus town, and in Calydnus soils. Pheidippus and bold Antiphus did guide to Trojan toils. Pheidippus and bold Antiphus did guide to Trojan toils. The sons of crowned Thessalus, derived from Hercules, who went with 30 hollow ships, well ordered, to the seas. Who went with 30 hollow ships, well ordered, to the seas. Now will I sing the sackful troops Pelasgian Argos held, Now will I sing the sackful troops Pelasgian Argos held, that in deep Alis Alope, Pelasgian Argos held, that in deep Alis Alope and soft Trachina dwelled, In Phthia and in Helide, where live the lovely dames, the Myrmidons, Hellenians, and archives robbed of fames. Where live the lovely dames, the Myrmidons, Hellenians, and archives robbed of fames, all which the great Aeacides in 50 ships did lead. For these forgat war's horrid voice, because they lacked their head that would have brought them bravely forth, but now at fleet did lie, that wind, but now, who would have brought them bravely forth. They lacked their head that would have brought them bravely forth. But now at fleet did lie, that wind-like user of his feet, fair Thetis' progeny, wroth, fair Thetis' progeny, wroth, fair Thetis' progeny, wroth for bright-cheeked Briseis' loss, who from Lyrnessus spoils, Briseis' loss, who from Briseis' loss, who from Briseis' loss, loss, who from Lyrnessus spoils, his own exploit he brought away as trophy of his toils, when that town was, as trophy of his toils, when that town was depopulate. He sunk the Theban towers, Menea, sunk the Theban towers, Meneta and Epistrophus he sent to Pluto's bowers, who came of King Pluto's bowers, who came of King Evenus soil, who came of King Evenus race, great Helipide, of King Evenus race, great Helipiades. Yet now he idly lives enraged, but soon must leave his ease. Helipiades. Yet now he idly lives enraged, but soon he must lives enraged, but soon must leave his ease. Lives enraged, but soon must leave his ease. Of those that dwelt in Phylace and flowery Pyrrhison, the wood of Ceres, and the soil that sheep are fed upon, Itone and Antron built by sea, and Tilius full of grass, Protesilaus, while he lived, the worthy captain was. While he lived, the worthy captain was. Whom now, full of grass, Protesilaus, while he lived, the worthy captain was, whom now the sable earth detains, his tear-torn face detains, his tear-torn face, whom now the sable earth detains, his tear-torn faced spouse detains, his tear-torn faced spouse, his tear-torn faced spouse, he woeful left in Phylace, and his house, he woeful left in Phylace, and his half-finished house. A fatal Dardan first his life, a fatal Dardan first, he woeful left in Phylace, and his half-finished house. A fatal Dardan first his life, and all Dardan first his life, of all the Greeks bereft. A fatal Dardan first his life, of all the Greeks bereft, as he was leaping from his ship, yet were his men unleft without a chief. Bereft, as he was leaping from his ship. Bereft, as of all the Greeks bereft, as he was leaping from his ship. Of all the Greeks bereft, as he was leaping from his ship. Yet were his men unleft without a chief, For though they wished to have no other man, but good Protesilae their guide, Podarces yet began to govern them. Podarces yet began to govern them. Iphitus' son, the son of Phylacus, most rich in sheep. Iphitus' son, the son of Phylacus, most rich in sheep, and brother to short-lived Protesilaus. Phylacus, most rich in sheep, and brother to short-lived Protesilaus. Of younger birth, less and less strong, yet served he Protesilaus. Of younger birth, less and less strong, yet served he to direct the companies that still did more their ancient duke affect. Twice 20 jetty that still did more their ancient duke. Yet served he to direct the companies that still did more their ancient duke affect. 20 jetty sails with him the swelling stream did take. 20 jetty sails with him. 20 jetty sails with him the swelling stream did take. Jetty sails the swelling stream did take. The swelling stream did take. But those that did in Pheres dwell, at the Bibian lake, in Bibi and in Glaphyra, Iolcus builded fair. In Bibi and in Glaphyra, Iolcus builded fair. In thrice 6 ships to Iolcus builded fair. In thrice 6 ships to Pergamus did through the sea. Builded fair. In thrice 6 ships to Pergamus did through the seas repair, with old Admetus' tender son, Eumetus, whom he bred of Alcest. Eumelus, whom he bred of Alcest, Peleus, whom he bred of Alcest, Peleus, fairest, whom he bred of Alcest, Peleus, fairest, Admetus' tender son, Eumelus, whom he bred of Alcest, Peleus' fairest child of all his female seed. The soldiers that before the siege Matrones' vales did hold. The soldiers that before the siege Methones' vales did hold. Thaumace, flowery Melibea, and Olison the cold. Duke Philoctetes governed, in darts of finest sleight. 7 vessels in his charge conveyed their honorable freight. By 50 rowers in a bark, most expert in the bow. But he in sacred Lemnos lay, brought miserably low, by torment of an ulcer grown with Hydra's poisoned blood, whose sting was such, Greece left him there in most impatient mood. Yet they thought on him at his ship, and choosed. Yet they thought on him at his ship, and choosed. Yet they thought on impatient mood. Yet thought they on him as it impatient mood. Yet thought they on him as it impatient mood. Yet thought they on him at his ship, and choose to lead his men, Medon, Oileus' bastard son, brought forth to him by Ren. From Trique, bleak Ithamen's cliffs and hapless Icali. From Trique, bleak Ithamen's cliffs and hapless Icali, Eurytus city, ruled by him in willful tyranny, in charge of Aesculapius' sons, physician highly praised. In charge of Aesculapius' sons, physician highly praised, Machaon, Podalirius, were 30 vessels raised. Ruled by him in willful tyranny, in charge of Aesculapius' sons, physician highly praised, Machaon, Podalirius, were 30 vessels raised. Who near Hyperia's fountain dwelt, and in Ormenius, the snowy tops of Titanus, and in Asterius, Evamon's son, Eurypylus, were 30 vessels raised. Who near Hyperia's fountain dwelt, and in Ormenius, the snowy tops of Titanus, and in Asterius, Evamon's son Eurypylus did lead into the field, whose towns did 40 black-sailed ships to that encounter yield. Did lead into the field, whose Evamon's son Eurypylus did Asterius. Evamon's son Eurypylus did lead into the field, whose towns did 40 black-sailed ships to that encounter yield. Eurypylus did lead into the field, whose towns did 40 black-sailed ships to that encounter yield.